Hello. Good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? We all good on sound, Matt. Thank you. Lovely. Hello, everyone. Good morning. If you're still grabbing a coffee, please go ahead and do so. Make yourself comfortable. It is lovely to see you all this morning for April's Creative Mornings Edinburgh. And on a beautiful spring morning, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good this morning. I hope you all are too. So whether this is your first Creative Mornings or your 30th Creative Mornings, a huge warm welcome to you all. Creative Mornings Edinburgh is one of many chapters across the world. We are a global organisation, and our manifesto states that everyone is creative and everyone is welcome here. We know that living a creative life can sometimes be challenging, it can sometimes be provocative, it can be difficult, but ultimately it's nothing without the community that we have around us. And at Creative Mornings Edinburgh, we are thrilled to have such a wonderful, warm and welcoming community around us. So like I say, we are one of 223 chapters. We're in 67 countries. I think it's upwards of 27,000 attendees per month, which blows my mind. And even though we're kind of moving back into in-person events, we've still got thousands of online events every month as well. And we are being live streamed on YouTube right now as we speak. And we've got an audience watching at home, which is fab. The Creative Mornings Edinburgh team has grown a little bit since last month, which I am thrilled about. So this morning we've got Matt, we've got Laura, we've got Sarah, we've got me, Rebecca, Rita, and a really warm welcome as well to Barty, to Lainey, and to Dee, who are with us this morning as well. It's so nice to have nearly a full complement of a team again, which is fab, and these guys will be bringing their expertise and skills to the events over the next few months. So, this month, our theme is Kismet. And Kismet was chosen by our Istanbul chapter and illustrated here by artist Celine Sinar. And for us at Creative Mornings, Kismet is all about that moment when the stars align, when good fortune visits you. It might be a chance encounter, an unexpected windfall. It might be a doorway opening onto your most impossible dreams. Kismet is a little pocket of time just for you. And we're here this morning to marvel at that sheer unlikely wonder of those brilliant moments that happen in our lives. Creative Mornings wouldn't be here, of course, without our global sponsors, MailChimp. So just a little nod to them this morning as well. MailChimp are partnering with Creative Champions It's Nice That, whose name I absolutely love. They have created a series called Movers and Makers, which is a new series online shining a spotlight on creatives and their stories, strategies, and this kind of insight behind their business and things like that. So if you want a little bit of an insight into what's happening in creative communities all around the world, if you head to MailChimp's website, and you can find out a little bit more about that project and this incredibly psychedelic little dog that we've got here. And also a huge shout out to our local partner, Free Agent. Free Agent are an award-winning online accountancy software organisation who support freelancers and small businesses. I know many of us are freelancers or owners of small businesses, and Free Agent, they're lovely guys and they're here to help, and they've helped over hundreds and hundreds of small businesses with their accounting needs. So if that's something that you are in the market for, look them up online and they'll be more than happy to help. Okay, so that brings me on to our guest speaker this morning, Nadia Karim, and her talk, The Life-Changing Magic of Interrupting. So before Nadia joins me up here, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who she is and what she does. So Nadia is an inclusive life coach at Everyday Rights. She helps individuals lead a colourful, creative, celebratory life and feel calm, connected, and present. She's committed to creating diverse, multifaceted spaces and smashing that one-size-fits-all box that makes some people think that certain spaces are not for them. Nadia works with creatives of all backgrounds and specialises in coaching people with marginalised identities and experiences, and those who are raising people with marginalised identities. She offers one-to-one coaching online that celebrates people's whole lived experience and holds space for the unique ways that we each move through this strange and sometimes scary world to help people change their lives, start creative projects, sustain the momentum, tune into what it is that they need and their values, set boundaries, and importantly, be visible as well. She's here for people who are done with going it alone, who want to be the change, who feel it all so deeply, whose energy ebbs and flows. Nadia has 15 years' experience as a self-employed creative, helping people to use their voice and tell their stories. Her most recent book, I Cannot Get This Wrong, Change the Way You Think About Anxiety, Create Joy, and Heal Collectively, which was co-created with Dr. Sarah Madigan, explores how to transform your relationship with anxiety. Nadia passionately believes that everyone can create a life that meets your own unique needs, reflects your values, connects you with others, and ultimately changes the world. So after Nadia's talk, there'll be a short Q&A, but until then, over to Nadia. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for coming out early on a Friday morning. I want you to leave today feeling like your work can change the world, like feeling connected to possibility, knowing that you can set boundaries, you can meet your own needs, you can ask for help, you can sustain momentum, moving from hope to trust. I want you to know that you can interrupt old stories about yourself and about how you belong in the world. I want you to feel courageous, to make bold requests. I want you to feel inspired to live a colourful life, a creative life, a connected life, whatever that looks like for you. And I want you to feel motivated. If you're feeling stuck right now, I want you to leave knowing that change is possible. So if you had gone back 30 years and told, the quietest kid in the north, trademark, that in 30 years she'd be standing up on stage, standing up in front of a lot of strangers, speaking about using her voice and about the power of positive change, she would definitely have called you a weirdo and gone back to watching David Bowie in Labyrinth. So thinking about destiny, I'm not sure that I believe this was my destiny as a kid. I spent a lot of my creative life as a writer with zero belief in possibility or in positive change. And it was kind of tied in with my lived experience as a black woman, as a British person, as someone with a neurodivergent mind, as someone with a history of depression, as an empath, as a quieter person. I, for a really long time found it hard to think about the future. And I think this all came to a head in the early days of the pandemic. I felt really isolated, I felt rushed, I felt resentful and angry and disconnected, and I just felt stuck. And I was really on autopilot. And I was so scared of what I might lose if I changed. And then kind of somewhere along the way, I started to use my voice. I started to speak out my needs out loud. And I started to advocate for change for other people as well. And I really, really connected to that idea that you can be a quiet person and you can still have a huge impact. So now my life looks really, really different. I work as an inclusive life coach. I hold space for my own lived experience. I honour the lived experience of my clients. And I think it's best summed up by the values of my business. So my business is Everyday Rights. And my values are warmth, simplicity, courage, transparency, creativity, delight, and inclusion. So thinking about Kismet, which I'm going to be honest, I actually had to look up the meaning of. I don't know, does anyone else, be honest, anyone else not quite sure what it meant? It's tied to this idea of destiny, and I'm really interested in when we think about destiny as this kind of linear idea, it can feel really unimaginative. It can just feel like a box that you don't fit into, another box you don't fit into, right? Especially if you're from a marginalised identity. And what I realise I'm interested in is interrupting destiny, interrupting this idea of foregone conclusions and lost causes. So Kismet is derived from the Arabic, which means the Arabic word for portions. And I like to think of it as portions, like the little decisions that we make every day that ends up being our destiny. And because I absolutely love the image I'm going to show you next, and because I really think that there's not an analogy that can't be suited to this, I chose a kaleidoscope. And within a kaleidoscope, the portions are the little pieces of your day, the little decisions, the fractions of our lives, your needs, your values, your responsibilities. You're also very welcome. I accidentally kind of made it look a bit like a croissant. So I realised that as I submitted the slides to Laura. Yeah, so, you know, delight and play live here too. It's not all serious. And it's about focusing on the small vision of what you can control, focusing on that. But the other amazing thing about kaleidoscopes is that with one twist, everything changes, right? And it's the same pieces, but with that kind of big, bold act, you shake everything up and you see what new thing is possible. So what do we need to believe in order to trust that it's worth polishing up those little pieces of your life, of your kaleidoscope, that it's worth paying attention to them, that it's worth even contemplating making those big, bold twists in your life? We have to believe in trust over hope. We have to move beyond this idea of hope to trust. You know, we need to really connect to this idea that change is possible, that there's no such thing as a lost cause. You know, I don't believe that the natural destiny of humanity is climate catastrophe, is nuclear disaster. You know, I don't believe that it's mocking and demonizing people from marginalized groups. I think we can do better than that as collective custodians of this planet. So it's about connecting to the ripple effect of your work in the world, and getting really curious about where those ripples might end up. You know, what impact are you going to have as one person? And it's also about throwing a new stone into an existing ripple and seeing where the water lands, seeing what happens, and interrupting that destined course of things, the way you think things are going to be inevitably. So far I understand it's all a bit abstract for this time on a Friday morning. So let's get really concrete. What does interrupting look like in practice? So to me, it looks like this book with my name on the bottom as co-creator, with 4 other people's names above that, and with the author's name. There was a time when I really didn't want to put my name to this book. I had spent about 15 years as a freelance writer, just kind of moulding myself around other people's projects and really erasing myself from the whole process. I think I believed that it was my destiny as a creative person to help other people tell their stories while sort of erasing mine as I went along. And this first draft of Sarah's book, when she sent it to me, I absolutely loved it. It was this really deeply moving account of how she has transformed her relationship with anxiety and lives with it, and about how she accesses joy every single day. It was inspiring and it was beautiful, but I couldn't put my name to it because I knew something was missing, right? I knew that there were people who were going to read this book who would not feel connected to it, who would put it down after the first few pages and say, here we go again, right? Here, I'm not here. And Sarah's aim with the book was to help it, was for it to transform as many people's lives as possible. And I knew that there were people who wouldn't be seen and that it wouldn't reach them. And here's what was missing, right? You can be as joyful as possible. You can be having the best day of your life, right? But what happens when someone shouts a homophobic comment at you in public? What happens when someone is racist to you in public? What happens if your basic needs aren't being met by community services, right? Like, what does joy look like if your disability living allowance has just been stopped, if your PIP payment isn't through, you know, if your universal credit hasn't been granted? What does joy look like then? What does anxiety and joy look like if you're estranged from your family? What does it mean to access joy if you arrive into adulthood with a history of trauma and you're kind of feeling like you're playing catch up? I wanted those people to be able to read this book as well and feel seen. So the destiny of this book was my first interruption. You know, I was shaking. I was so uncertain of what would happen. I had no idea how it would go. And it's evidence that you can interrupt even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable, because it probably means the interruption needs to be made. And it opens up space. My interruption opened up space for new voices, right? For it became this really beautiful co-created book with 4 amazing diverse guest authors whose voices and experiences, you know, span all kinds of lived experience. It's a really rich book now, and I really believe that anyone who reads it is going to get something from it. So after this experience, I kind of realised, I think that there's a point in every creative project where you either suck it up or you interrupt. And after my experience, I really believe in the power of conversation. So what else do we have to believe to trust that it's worth interrupting and taking that risk, especially in our careers? I think we need to believe that change is always possible, that it's all right to not have the answers. It's okay, it's lifelong learning, it's all right. That our needs are valid, you know, in this case, my need to feel seen and for other people to feel seen. That our values are worth fighting for, so in this case, my value of inclusion was non-negotiable. I think we need to be really connected to the ripple effect of positive change and trust that other people can grow as well. So to make these interruptions in the world, to have the confidence to do it, we need to interrupt the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. So here are some of my stories, and I would love to know if any of them resonate. Like, put your hand up, give me a whoop, do what you want to do, stamp your feet. Okay, I've left it too late. I'm better on paper. I could never ask for that. It's just the way things are. Oh, I'm too quiet to have an impact. And even if I start, I won't be able to sustain momentum, so what's the point, right? Do any of these resonate? Yeah, okay. Not just me, brilliant. So some of my interruptions in my own life. This idea of I've left it too late being tied to kind of expectations, societal expectations, or just, you know, the way people know you, the things people know you for, and being okay with changing that. So for a really long time, like most of my life, basically, until a few years ago, I would put myself in these really busy social environments, and I would struggle to function. I would unravel slowly over the course of the evening. You know, I wouldn't tell anyone what was happening internally. I'd just kind of dissolve and then leave, not tell anyone, never speak about it. And now I understand that it was my mind working like so hard to process all of the sensory environment. And so now I carry my little earplugs with me everywhere. I say no to social events. For this talk, I asked Laura if I would be facing the window, because I knew that with the sunshine and the light reflecting off the windows, I wouldn't be able to give this talk. I give myself compassion, and I don't tell myself that I'm acting like a kid anymore. The story of being too quiet to have an impact was a big one for me. But I've realised that quiet magic is still magic. You know, the world needs calmness, and just do it anyway. Just do it anyway. So when we get good at advocating for our own needs, there's a ripple effect as well, because we begin to recognise the needs of other people, and we begin to get good at preempting what those needs might be. So for example, in my coaching, I ask people from the very beginning, you know, what makes a space feel safe for you? What are your pronouns? You know, do you need an easy read version of that document I'm sending out? If you have a disability that affects your energy levels, can we have a protocol in place for cancelling sessions, so that it's just about removing any shame, any guilt, any frustration, any miscommunications that arise because people don't ask for what they need. And, you know, I'm really connected to this ripple effect of making interruptions in public, not just at home in your comfortable environment, because it interrupts that narrative of no one cares or what's the point. And when we make requests and we have conversations and we advocate and we care out loud, it inspires other people to do it as well. So we need to get really clear. You need to get really clear on where you begin and end, and where someone else begins and ends. This is you. In order to show up consistently in the world as your colourful, creative, connected self, you need to get clear on your values and your needs. And if you're struggling with the values idea, you know, add a verb to it. Make it an active way of being in the world, so that you can anchor your decisions to it. So for example, if one of your values is curiosity, you know, maybe you create with curiosity. It's a bit of a tongue twister. I'm not sure why I picked like that connection, a combination of words out of the entire English language. But yeah, create with curiosity. And also see which needs you can meet for yourself and which you need help for, and ask for help for. When you get clear on this for yourself, it makes it infinitely easier to navigate the space between you and everyone else. Because, you know, we are sharing space in the world with everyone else's values and everyone else's needs. So this white space here is where our stories live about how we're supposed to show up in the world. You know, it's where the interruptions happen as well. It's where we set boundaries, and it's where choice lives, and it's where we make loving requests of people and not demands. It's where we make connections and we weave networks and we radiate our ideas. It's also where we respect the boundaries of other people, because we know where we begin and where we end, and we respect that of other people as well. And a really helpful question to think of if you are finding it difficult to navigate this white space and you're telling yourself stories about how you should be showing up, is to ask, is it really your voice? Is it really your needs? Is it your belief? Is it your values? Or is it just something you've adopted over your life and you're ready to let go of? And if it's not yours, you know, what can you choose to tell yourself instead? And I think that, you know, asking yourself that question often is really key to navigating the world and showing up consistently and being visible and being all right with being visible and keeping momentum going. For everyone who said that that was something that was hard, you know, keep the momentum going. So one thing we really need to do to make space and time for this is interrupt the noise of everyday life. Just get quiet with yourself. Retune the media that you consume so that it does reflect your needs and your values. I have a loved one who, for a lot of years, would tell me the plot lines like in intricate detail of every Scandi-noir, right? Like every psychological horror film that they watched, like constantly just telling me it. And I set a boundary that I don't want. Please don't tell me. Don't let me be the person that you tell those to. I can't handle it. You know, I no longer read books that don't make me. I only read books that make me feel seen and valued as a human. I don't listen to the radio with its news every 30 minutes. I listen to a guided meditation, 15 minutes every morning. I've got that time, and I do that, and it's important to me, and it helps. So it's just about creating time to process life, right? To give yourself blank space. And it's also about believing in yourself and your creativity. Like, create more than you consume. Believe in your vision and believe in yourself as a leader. Even if you don't see other people who look like you leading, like, believe in it, do it anyway. You know, and if something doesn't exist already, create it. Believe in the capacity for growth of yourself and everyone around you. So is everyone up for a call to action? Yeah? Yes. Fab. Okay. Every time you're not sure, ask yourself, whose voice is it? Like, is it even my voice? You know, get really clear on your core values, and if, you know, you're finding that difficult, add a verb to it, make it an active way of being in the world, and ask yourself constantly, what little interruption can I make today? And trust that there's a point to doing it. So to end, I just want to come back to this image of the kaleidoscope. Work on those little pieces, work on the portions, work on your values and your needs and your responsibilities and the stories that you tell about who you should be in the world. Work on all of those things. You know, make them beautiful, authentic, playful, you know, add your croissants if you want to. Believe in them. Know that you belong here, right? You belong here. And value your lived experience. Share those little pieces with pride and trust that you've got the courage and the boldness to make those big moves. Right? Trust that what you're seeing is not the finished picture. You're not done yet. You know, there's no such thing as a lost cause. And you can interrupt at any time. Because when you interrupt and when you make the big twist of the kaleidoscope and when you make those big bold decisions and those big bold moves, just trust that even though you don't know what it's going to look like, you know, even though it's going to be different, even though it might be scary, even though it might be uncomfortable, almost certainly uncomfortable, you know, even though you might be leaping out of your comfort zone, trust that while all those things are still happening, the finished picture will still be beautiful. Thank you.
Nadia, thank you so much for that. We're going to open the floor to questions and also online as well. Sarah's got our amazing catch box. Yeah, if anybody's got any questions to start us off. Okay, go for it.
That's great. Hello.
Hi.
At the risk of jumping 1,000 steps ahead, where do you start to discern where you are and the beliefs that you've adopted in order to separate those?
Yeah.
You know, as a man of a certain age who has lived a whole life and has beliefs, and some of which are probably mine and some of which I've probably adopted, where there is a whole amount of fuzz in the middle.
Yeah.
Where do you start to
That's
find
a really
that?
good question. That's a really good question. I guess I'll answer it by where I started and see if that helps. I was very dismissive of my lived experience, like forever. I was dismissive of it. I'd be like, oh, that's just me, you know. I didn't realize that everyone felt like that. And actually it was only during the pandemic, really, the start of the pandemic, and sharing some of my stories and my lived experience and connecting with other people who are in the world of, you know, neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and making those connections between my experience and other people's. I realized how much, I think the first step is realizing how much isn't yours. Like, and when you acknowledge that and you're okay with that, I think then the next step is to start looking more closely at them. Does that make sense? And then getting quiet and just talking about it and sort of like diving into the things that feel really uncomfortable to talk about. And maybe that's in private, you know, writing or leaving yourself voice notes, but just kind of starting to move it from your body a little bit and just feeling into it as well. Like, I recently started, you know, doing yoga and kind of dancing, and those are things that I thought, like, yeah, I'm not the kind of person who dances. But you know, there's a reason our bodies are meant to move, and it helps us process things. So it's kind of for me, combining that thinking with moving and not rushing from one thing to the next. If you have a little moment where you're like, oh, actually, I'm not sure if I even believe that, don't just dismiss it. Don't dismiss it, and spend some time with that discomfort, and see what happens. Talk about it, spend time with it, and yeah. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay.
I like that phrase, spend time with discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It's a great question to start us off. Who's next?
Thank you so much, Nadia. That was really such a gentle and enabling talk. Thank you. I love your aesthetic, and your website is beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm really curious to know how you came to develop that and your beautiful slides today, when you say that you're yes, how did you get that clarity, and where did that beauty come from?
Thank you.
That's strange.
Yeah, thanks for saying those kind words. I'm really proud of the website after being invisible for a really, really long time and doing things like a lot of really cool things, but kind of secretly. I would never celebrate anything about anything I'd done. So, you know, I had the skills to make the website. I had been doing it for my previous job, and I think I started with my values, right? How I wanted people to feel as well. I wanted people to feel calm and seen when they came to the website. And I also, I made an easy read version of it as well, because I wanted people who digest information in a kind of a quieter way to be able to do that and not to be bombarded by all the text, because I am a writer and it is hard for me to write one sentence, right? Like, so if you look on my website, it's pretty long. There's a lot of stories on there. So I think, starting with my values and how I wanted people to feel, and then sort of thinking about the colours and what felt like it flowed with that. And I think the biggest compliment that people have given me is that it feels, it makes sense. It makes total sense. Like, it feels like you. And I guess it's about trying to make that consistency between what people see online and then when they meet me, not being surprised or disappointed, right? They're not better on paper, that whole shebang. But yeah, were you thinking like practical, how did I design it, or is that helpful to know that?
No, just full evaporation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. I think we have a question from the internet.
So we have a few questions for you.
Amazing.
So what is next for you? What is your next move to follow your values? And Jackie said it's a great talk, and thanks.
Thank you, internet. What's next is I plan to carry on, trying to help people change their own lives through coaching. And also as well, it's worth knowing that if anyone else read that I was a life coach and was like, okay, come on. That used to be my reaction as well. I didn't really understand the impact of what coaching can do in people's lives. And then I experienced it. So what's next for me is just working with my clients, and hopefully anyone else, if you ever want to work with me, give me a shout, love to. And just having creative sessions with people where they can show up as themselves and being inclusive and learning what that means, right? And I'm sure that there's things I've not even thought about. And, I plan to keep learning and training and getting better at it. And also, I've realised how much I actually love speaking after being quiet for so long. I really like it. It's great. It's not that scary. So just keeping on interrupting those stories I have about myself as well, and modelling it so that it inspires other people, hopefully.
Great. Two more questions, if that's okay. So when you were first given the book, were you invited to interrupt? And if not, how hard the decision to do that? How hard was the decision?
So Sarah and I were friends. So the dynamic was different. And actually this is interesting because I have been in a lot of situations in past where, as an editor, where, it's an anthology, but it's an anthology that doesn't have anyone who looks like me, and that's okay, right? No one else is interrupting that. It doesn't have any queer experiences in it, but that's okay because no one's interrupting that. And I think that within creative projects, there are lots of people who hold the tongues a lot of the time. And there are all kinds of power reasons for that, it's not simple. But maybe this book was an example of, a new Sarah. I trusted her, she trusted me, and it was just the two of us working together, and I felt like I could invite her and sit and have an actual conversation about it. And it was also in the sort of the height of, it was in 2020, and there was a lot more awareness of anti-racism, and from that particular aspect, people were kind of more willing to have those conversations. Well, some people were, Sarah was. And I think I reached the point where I couldn't not do it. It felt too important. And the process was uncomfortable, and I think I definitely thought that was the end of the project and should find someone else less difficult to work with. But that didn't happen, and that's testament to Sarah as well. And, we created something infinitely better, I think. And the contributors by themselves are each amazing people. So I'd really urge you to look them up as well.
Great, thank you. One last question from the internet, and I will give back the microphone. Who has been your biggest inspiration?
That's such a tough question. It's a really good question. I get inspired by a lot of my friends, a lot of people who are quite new friends, who just the way they navigate the world and they share their experiences. I get really inspired by that. I think the people who just keep showing up even when it's difficult, and they show up and they're honest about mental well-being, and those people inspire me. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a question over here earlier.
Yeah, again, Nadia, it was really lovely talk.
Thank you.
I'd like to sort of drill a little bit deeper into, these concepts that you're presenting are really wonderful, but can we go into them a little bit more? This idea of interrupting, and the idea of the kaleidoscope, these are really fantastic ideas. How did you get them?
I love kaleidoscopes. Honestly, I think there's no analogy it can't be tied in with a little kaleidoscope. But how did I get them? I really love photography. I really, really love photography. I did a podcast recently and it was asking about my kind of creative journey throughout my life, and I realized that photography was a constant. So I think that visual, like this idea of literally seeing the world differently, and this idea that we're all parts of a bigger whole. I think my mind likes to anchor an idea onto a visual, and that seemed like an obvious one to me. Yeah. Does that make sense? It does. Perfect. Thank you.
No pressure. Oh, go on then.
I'll end
Close
this.
us out.
I started. Okay. On the scale of introvert to extrovert, where do you see yourself, and how will you recover today?
How will I recover after this event?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the most terrifying experience. I'm putting myself in that experience where I've been around lots and lots of extroverts and been absolutely flawed. I think I'm probably, I don't know, like a 3 or 4, maybe. I'm fine here, actually. Like, it's surprising. I thought I'd be really nervous, and I thought that I would be really distracted as well by the noise and everything, and it's okay. So I think maybe it depends on the context and how much choice you have over it. So yeah, I think I will be fine after this. Yeah. Maybe that's the thing, isn't it, right? It's like finding your people and finding your places. And so for a really long time, I would have these kind of pockets within the city, or within where if I was going somewhere new, I'd find these pockets, these safe places, right? And make sure that I knew exactly where I could bolt to, and exactly where I could go and sit quietly and have a drink of water, and put my music on really, really loudly and listen to the same song like 15 times until I felt like I could enter the world again. And with COVID, lots of those places shut or have changed. So I think it's about realizing what you can provide for yourself in terms of a sense of safety, breathing, and all the things that are accessible to you in the moment that don't require a place or a particular person to be on duty, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think I know what to do these days, which is a nice feeling. Thanks for the question.
For all your questions, and thank you, Nadia, for your amazing and thoughtful answers. Exactly what we expected, but nonetheless delightful. I'll hand over to Rebecca to close us out, if that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much again, Nadia. That was gorgeous. Thank you. Yeah, like Sarah says, just a couple of housekeeping bits before we finish up. So we are running every month, last Friday of every month, as I'm sure you know, but if you want your Creative Mornings fix in between our events, you can take part in Creative Mornings Worldwide virtual field trips, which is a series of workshops and online events that you can get involved in. If you just head to creativemornings.com/field trips, there's plenty of good stuff to get your teeth into there. Another reminder that for our next event as well, we will have a community minutes slot. So if you or somebody you know has something really awesome that they want to shout about, whether that is a project or initiative or something they're creating or a group that they're working with that you think deserves a shout out, then please get in touch with us. And we're happy to have you up here for about a minute, 60 seconds or so, to tell our community all about it. So drop us a wee email. It's just edinburgh@creativemornings.com. And on a similar note as well, although this month we're thrilled to have some new team members on board, which is awesome, we are also still on the lookout for somebody who has some photography skills, who's a whiz behind the camera. So if you know anybody who might fit that bill and wants to offer some volunteering hours, then please point them in our direction as well. That would be awesome. But yeah, all that remains to say is a huge thank you again to Nadia, a huge thank you to the Fruit Market for hosting us again, and their wonderful team. Thank you so much for your hospitality for the past few months we've been here. It's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you as well to the team, and thank you to you all for being here. We will be back again next month. That should say May, not April, for our next theme, which is the theme of now. So yeah, have a wonderful Friday, everyone, and we'll see you in May. Thank you again.